All right, so thank you everybody for coming tonight for the ONA meeting November 3rd, 2025. I'd like to announce the names of the council and the city staff in attendance. We have Councilor Marjorie Grace. We have myself, Sean Nolan. We have Lines, our legislative aid. We have school committee, Melissa Textera, and we have our building commissioner, Rob Vicari, and we have our counselor, Scott Benmar. Ward 1. And we do have members of Historic Commission. I forget your names.
Susan Morial.
And Ralph Pizzatoro.
Excellent. Thank you very much. So up first, we have CC 2025-038, Memhard. Amend GCO Chapter 22, Traffic and Motor Vehicles, Section 22-270.1. Resident sticker parking only by adding Hammond Street for its entire length between 6 a.m. and 6 p.m. from May 1st to September 15th. And this was continued from September 15th, 2025. And we have Councilor Majota joining us now. Scott, I do have one question on this, is that there's been some talk that I've seen on Hammond Street about this may not just be in a seasonal thing because of some situations with the Airbnb and other stuff where it may be a hardship for residents year round. Is there any thought or support if you making an amendment to this to ask for it to go to year round? Or would you like to keep it the way it is and then discuss this again at full council?
Thank you very much. At this point, I think the request is for seasonal, resident only parking on Hammond Street. On the one side, it's one side only is allowed. And there is a considerable traffic of people parking in residence yards, in handicap places for access to the water sheet or to walk to the beach. And as other streets in the neighborhood have instituted resident only parking, more and more cars have moved over to this location. And Sonia Goulart is here, and her husband's expected shortly, and she's been an advocate for this. She's had communications with her neighbors about this. It's only getting worse as there's new development on Hammond Street with additional B&Bs and other seasonal uses. But again, the request at this point is for seasonal only, like other areas, resident only parking.
Excellent. Thank you, Scott.
Thank you.
And would you like to speak for a moment? You don't have to. We've read the emails and correspondence.
You did. Okay. No, I have taken pictures, and like Mr. Menhart says, it is getting somewhat worse over time. So if we can start maybe small and do the seasonal and see what happens with the Airbnbs, because they are still continuing to be rented and they are still having more cars than what I think they should. I just don't know how to, solve that problem. I mean, we have, I think, two Airbnbs that I know of, and there's another one off of a side street, and they're all parking on Hammond, and they're parking all which way.
Nope. And I believe we all saw the pictures of the cars from
Yeah.
like Rhode Island and other things.
Yeah, Texas, wherever they're,
yeah.
so.
So our duty is to protect the soul of our city and its residents, and that's what we're concerned with. There's other aspects that people can use for parking and find ways around, but people shouldn't have to come home from work and find out they can't park. So I do understand that.
So, no, question. So if you run an Airbnb, I mean, shouldn't you have to allow for parking? Like if
it all falls back on what the requirements are for the house. And certain houses have certain requirements in different zoning areas where they're allowed to have certain off-street parking as a requirement. Some require none. And then there's also the point blank that the house has parking, it meets the requirement of the house, but you overextend the guest, then they have to go somewhere.
which I've witnessed with a house next door. So, I mean, if they can park there right now, I can't say anything if you have 5 guys renting the house with 5 cars.
Mhm.
And there's only allowed for 2 parking spots, so.
And we see this a lot around the
Yeah,
whole
okay.
city.
I was just
People will
wondering
rent a
whether-
house for $5,000 for the week. And they'll have 5 cars and it'll be 5 people. It's not that expensive for a vacation. It works out well, but it's a disruption for the neighbors. Any council questions? We'll start with Councilor Majota.
No questions based on the pictures, but I do like how we are, starting with the, it's being seasonal. I think that is to see how it is during summertime. And then that way during the winter months, we can see how that goes well and then
Yeah.
make the changes if necessary. So again, small step to help the neighborhood. And I'm fine with it.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
Excellent. Councilor Grace.
Yeah, I read the minutes to the traffic commission meeting last night and, it was very compelling and reasonable requests that were made. I think making it seasonal is consistent with the other area around that. We've done it for many, many neighborhoods, that got overflow from beach traffic and whatnot. The residents should come first to the people that are playing at the marina or at the beach. So I am in favor of going forward with this.
Excellent. With that being said, Councilor Majota, do we have a motion?
Committee recommendation moves to recommend the city council amend GCO chapter 22, traffic and motor vehicles, section 22.3.1, resident sticker parking only, by adding Hammond Street for its entire length, 6 a.m. to 6 p.m., May 1st to September 15th, and I so move.
Second, this is good.
All in favor?
Aye.
Lines, when would this go to council? This be the 25th?
No, this will actually be, all the traffic is being heard all the traffic amendments being heard on December 9th.
December 9th. So this is going full to the full council for December 9th. Councilor Menhard and Hammond Street, so thank you very much.
I'd like just to introduce Ron Goulart, who just arrived.
How you doing, Ron?
Well, thank you.
Nice to see you in person. I've heard your name a lot.
Really?
Yes.
Okay, good, I hope.
Let's leave it there.
Thank you.
All right, so next up, we have CC 2025 043 Majota. Amend GCO traffic, chapter 22, traffic and motor vehicles, section 22-270 parking prohibited at all times, and section 22-291 tollway zones by adding Leonard Street both sides from its intersection with Cambridge Avenue and its intersection with River Road. Councilor Majota, the floor is yours.
Yeah, this is something that was brought to my attention. The person making the request, emailed the DPW. Mike and Rose brought it to my attention, and then we're talking to the residents and looking at the pictures. Again, I know that some councilors say that we are sort of pushing the line of where, taking the parking away from certain areas. But this case, I feel that it is necessary just to, again, for safety issues, which is always the number one priority for our residents. And I believe the traffic commission did look at this one and they did actually approve it. Yeah, the traffic commission,
And in all fairness, the traffic commission did approve Hammond Street as well.
so with that, I'm just with it. Backing up the traffic commission and for the residents, this is why I put this forward.
Excellent. Council questions. I'll start with Council Grace.
What was the specific reason? Is it the narrowness of the road? Is it
It's
the?
narrow in the turn, so it's just, again, with parking on that, going, it does become dangerous. And I think you said it 1,000 times, speed,
Yep.
slow
Slow down.
down, be safe. Until that happens, I think we need to do what's necessary for, make any side safe.
Do most of the people in the area have off-street parking available to them?
They, actually, I do not know necessarily about that. So I can't answer that.
Okay.
I can find out more for the next city council meeting.
Because we can't go to Ward 4, that's 3 and 5 councilors because they don't want this over there.
That is not true. I welcome everyone.
Scott welcomes us, but we have to go through a visa application and it's,
So it's kind of like
It's-
going over
it's
the bridge to Magnolia.
yeah, I did sneak over there and and I've actually known the area for a long time. I started working at Tally's years ago, towing in Wolf Hill, driving a truck, and it's very tight down there. Most of the neighborhoods do have off-street parking, but there is a big safety concern. And there's a lot more people walking in that neighborhood than are driving. So I'm gonna be happy to support this tonight. With that being said, Frank, you get to read your own motion.
Two in a row, fantastic.
No, hold on. Nope, sorry, this is Marjorie's.
I can read it.
No, that's
I'll read my
fine.
own.
No, because she's gonna get the big one.
Okay.
I did the dissertation.
She is a better reader.
Committee recommendation, move to recommend that the city council amend the Gloucester Code of Ordinances, chapter 22, traffic and motor vehicles, section 22-270, parking prohibited at all times, and section 22-291, tow-away zones by adding Leonard Street both sides from its intersection with Cambridge Avenue to its intersection with River Road and Escalon.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. And this will be scheduled for the 9th again. Yes, so December 9th, this will be coming up for full city council. The next one is number 3, a memorandum from the Gloucester Licensing Board regarding acceptance of GL, chapter 138, section 12D, alcohol beverage licensing statute. And I'd like to welcome not only the chair of our licensing board, but also my school committee liaison and someone that has been awesome to me for 10 years. And I really appreciate all the support you've given me and let me know how schools work and how it goes. So with that being said, Melissa, the floor is yours.
What an intro.
I know, how do you beat that?
She
Right back
deserves
at
it. I'm
you.
sorry. She
Okay.
deserves it.
Thank you. So Melissa Teixeira Prince, Chair of Licensing Board. So you got the memo that includes the statutory change by the governor that was made on June 30th, where Maura Healy signed an act where those that currently have a annual on-premise beer and wine license can request a change of their type of license.
Restaurants.
Well, restaurants, hotels, anything on premise, not off premise being package stores, anything served on premise where you go in and purchase for drink. They can change their license, request to change their license and come before the board and ask us to become all alcohol. If they do that, and if the licensing board approves it, they will be able to under the approval of the ABCC as well, they will be able to morph their license into all alcohol. The change, what makes it different than the other all alcohol licenses is once the owner of that license is done using their license, whether it be revoked or they want to sell their business, the license automatically morphs back to a beer and wine license. So anyone who currently has a beer and wine license, right now, the city of Gloucester is authorized to have 6 beer and wine annual licenses. Only 4 are being used, so there are 2 that aren't used. So it's going to be interesting to see how, if this passes, how that plays out. Currently, it is salted cod. And there's, I think it's like a sister restaurant that hasn't opened yet at the Thai place, Salute, and the Bowling Alley and Maria's Pizza. They all currently have year-round beer and wine. So if this is approved, those establishments will be able to come to the licensing board if they so choose and ask that their licenses be morphed into all alcohol. And then the licensing board will make that decision, and then the ABCC will confirm it if approved. But like I said, the trigger to this is that the license automatically reverts back to the beer and wine license. And it also does not add to our quota of year-round licenses. As you know, if you know, the Gloucester's population is what triggers how many year-round all alcohol licenses you can have. These licenses are going to be kept in a separate category. Every year, I get this from the ABCC, which tells us how many restaurant licenses we have, how many seasonal licenses we have, on premise, off premise. They added another category down bottom for these types of licenses that will be tracked to know that these licenses must revert if they're changed into all alcohol going forward. So the licensing board on October 14th unanimously agreed to recommend to put this forward to the city council for your consideration. If you approve the statutory language, it comes back to us and we can decide the criteria for those licenses to be issued, what fees, if any, will be charged and things like that. And then we can move forward and address any requests.
Excellent, thank you, Melissa. We'll start with Council Grace. Do you have any questions?
You said that we have currently have six, potential licenses for being used. Will that stay at six? We won't be increasing the amount? Cause I'd hate to see someone like look at this as a backdoor way to get in and get a liquor license.
You're onto that.
So,
So what I would say is right now the city is authorized to distribute 6. 4 are already distributed, so we have 2 that are not. So I'm sure word is gonna get out soon.
but it wouldn't be any more than two, we could.
It would not be more than, unless our population changes, so every year, the licensing board votes for the population and sends it into the ABCC. And then they determine whether, I think through the voters registration as well, the clerk's office at City Hall works with the ABCC as well. And if our population goes up, has to go over more than 5,000 people to trigger another license to come. That would be the only way at this time.
So we don't know if there's any, kind of long-term plan down the road to have this replace the current liquor license.
We don't. I would say right now they're allowed to morph their license and it doesn't give it an expiration date. So if someone owns the restaurant for 50 years, then for 50 years, they can,
But until and unless our population
Changes.
increases, and it will remain at 6, so we kind of have at least a safeguard that somebody can't come in and say, oh, I've just found a really easy way to get a liquor license.
well, with 2 out there, so this
Two,
is,
if
this
it's
is what's
2,
gonna
it's not
spark
the
the
same as
conversation.
20.
Yeah, well, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, you won't see
Okay.
that because it's too much discussion because it's competitive, right?
It is
So,
competitive for the people that have, have coveted these
Yep.
things for years and spent a considerable amount of money. I can foresee there being some animosity.
yep. Currently licenses are going for about 130,000, so it is.
And do we have any ballpark idea if you would be for this one?
So, so there's 2 things. We can talk about a fee to apply, which I don't believe, we have a $200 fee that they apply online.
Mhm.
That fee's already
Mhm.
instituted. I can't imagine adding to that because we haven't added an extra fee other than that online fee. But I think what may happen is the cost of a annual license when they renew it every year is, I want to say 2,100. I could be off on that.
It's 24.
Or 24,
Sorry.
and the beer and wine is less, I think it's like 19.
So would they revert? to
So-
24?
I, upon the agreement of the board, at this time right now, without me getting into what the board's vote would be, I mean,
But
I would,
That's a possibility.
I would suggest it would be the same as an annual license, right? We're not gonna do
Well,
anything more.
It just, to me, it seems fair to the people that have to pay that every year for the current liquor license.
Exactly.
that It's only fair that.
Yep.
The ones that transition would pay the same amount.
I can assure you that I keep the concerns of all the businesses at heart and try to be as fair as I
Of course.
can and open and helping businesses as much as I can, especially since being on this board since COVID. Whatever we can do to support our businesses and
course.
keep it fair and equal is the right way to go. So,
Excellent. I'd like to ask a question of Rob Vicari. Do you want to add anything to this as building commissioner? Because I know it intertwines with inspections and how things are done and what. a
It
business
does.
capacity
We already
is.
do the inspections for these establishments because they have a year-round license, so they're already required to have an annual safety inspection, so it really won't change too much on that aspect. It's more just to help. I think it's great. I think it'll help some of these smaller businesses, generate some more revenue. And I like the way the state designed it where it's not sellable, so, license, you change it, it's gonna live and die with you. Doesn't go anywhere else.
Excellent. Thank you, Rob. Councilor Majota.
Yeah, and like you said, they could choose to. So if one of those businesses don't want to do it, they don't have to.
and keep in mind, right now, currently with the 4 licenses, one owner has 2 of those 4 licenses.
Oh, okay.
The Sacred Cod and the Salute Day that's supposed to open at the old Thai restaurant.
Okay,
They're the same owners and they both have beer and wine with cordial licenses.
okay, and then with the ownership, so if, I own it, it's under my name, if I wanted to give it to my son, doesn't matter.
Can't
Mine
transfer.
can't transfer.
He's too young.
Oh, yeah. He is a little bit young for now.
This isn't a mooring. No, it can't. There's no transfer of these licenses. It automatically reverts back to a beer and wine. But from my understanding of the statute, and also Suzanne Egan, city solicitor Suzanne Egan guided us through this conversation as well. I believe it, so it reverts back to a beer and wine license, but that doesn't mean someone can't come in and ask for that beer and wine license, get it, and then ask for it to be converted.
Okay.
So I don't know how long they're gonna allow these conversions. They didn't give any language to that. So at this time, it just seems, as of now, if you want one, you can get one, and there'll be 2 available if this passes, and it'll be interesting to see how that plays out in the community.
And they still have to go through all, all your questionings,
Yep.
and could they still be denied?
So they already have licenses, and the authority that the board has to rely on when they're determining whether they're eligible for a license falls under, one of the cases is Ballerin Inc. versus Licensing Board of Boston that we follow. And the criteria you have to look at is like size, location. Is there a need in the community for that license? I have a statement from Suzanne Egan from years back when she said, traffic, noise, size of operation that carries a license, and the reputation of the applicant. So that standard applies to all the licenses that we give out. So it would, if you already have a beer and wine license, pretty much you pass that standard.
Okay.
And so changing it, I don't know how you could make an argument if they already in the works, unless there's a common practice that has, that now applies, that is different from when they got the license a year ago.
Okay.
So I think it would be difficult to say no, but reputations can change, and delivery issues might be different now versus what they were 30 years ago when the license was provided to them. So there's a conversation to be had, but the standard is pretty much the same as the beer and wine license that they already have.
Okay, no question.
And I think it's important to note that this is coming from the state, not
Yes.
something that the city has decided to do. So we're following the recommendation of the state.
Yes.
All right, so I read this and it's coming from the state, but to me, I believe it's a gift from the state.
Mhm.
And someone in town, 6
Boston.
people possibly are gonna benefit. But it's gonna benefit for everybody.
Mhm.
So you may have a small mom and pop restaurant that they're doing their thing, they have a beer, wine, cordial, and now all of a sudden they can make a martini. And it's gonna help. So, and like I said before the meeting started, that hotel and restaurant tax is one of the biggest money makers that we have in the city. And I'm not saying that people need to go out and get loaded, and do something like that, but, sometimes you really wanna go to a place like Maria's and have a pizza, but you may want a margarita,
Right.
maybe you don't go to
I
margarita,
want chicken parmesan.
Yeah, exactly, but maybe you don't wanna go there, because you really want to have that margarita, so next thing you know, you may even be out of town. Going someplace where you can get comparable food to theirs, which is really good,
Mhm.
to have a margarita with it. So it's good for the city, it's good for the businesses, which in turn is good for the residents.
Can I add something I want you to
You
think
can.
about too? So this is what my mind went right away, because being on this board for the amount of years that I have, I've seen the competition. So it also, because we have 2 available, and we have seasonal license holders that would like to have year-round licenses, technically, they can now apply. We have 2 licenses available. If they apply for a beer and wine
Year-round.
license, you have restaurants here that are seasonal that want to be open year-round. If this gets approved by the city council, they can now request to not have a seasonal license, get a year-round beer and wine license. If they're approved, then morph it into a all alcohol license.
And this a seasonal license then.
Yeah, so
Well, so seasonal, yeah, the on-premise seasonal licenses are the one license that the licensing board has discretion on, and there is no quota for. So that's helpful to us in this community when businesses come here and want to be successful. But yeah, so that's why I say it's gonna be interesting how this plays out, knowing that there's two available.
Excellent. Is there any other questions? With this being said, I think that this is a great thing, for the city of Gloucester. I appreciate the knowledge that you bring forward to us, to O and A, to answer our questions. And the thought of the whole licensing board being on board with this is great. And I can't thank you enough for what you did tonight, because I think this is gonna be a winner for Gloucester.
Yes.
And with that being said, Councilman Majota,
Yeah, that's fine. Committee recommendation, move to recommend the city council accept general law, chapter 138, section 12D, and I so move.
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. In lines, is this gonna be
Mark, the 25th.
the 25th of
November.
November? Is when this is gonna come back.
So I will be at city council that night.
You should bring all of you guys.
Yeah, maybe we will.
There's no Topsail Fair, so Teddy can't say no.
I know, really. I just want to thank this board, and this board and the city council as a whole, because you've been very consumer friendly with the licensing board and the actions you've taken with the BYOB license a couple of years ago that we put forward. So it's been great working with each and every one of you too.
Thank you.
Best of luck tomorrow. I know there's no competition on this side of the table,
There's no competition on this table.
but on this side, we're like, ah. But anyway, great work and fun to work with people that have such big hearts for this community.
And good luck for you too.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Have a
All right,
great
so
night.
I'm gonna take a 5-minute recess before we move on to this larger event. And so everybody. Who you want?
We are still live. but what?
Yep. Yeah, so if you say anything bad, if you're. Are you sticking around for a minute?
Yeah, I'm on that.
Okay.
I'm just gonna,
I have your email.
I'll be back.
Oh,
Get
Thank
live.
you.
Thank you.
Oh, I'll see you tomorrow somewhere.
Yeah, thanks.
Um,
Good luck tomorrow. No concern. Yeah. Lines.
High school, I was still. Anything works. So. I do have slides. So if I want to see them. I also have copies of the slides.
Laptop here. And a presentation for. Do they need to present? We have the option. If the committee wants that. Yeah. In his absence, vice chair. Setting up. Yeah.
Yeah, take it.
I have kids.
You don't. I have no problem with Suzanne doing a presentation. We're obviously gonna see it again at full council. But, can you limit it to 5 minutes?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, excellent.
No, I've always sat in the back.
That's the advice I gave you too, wasn't it, Susan? I don't think only one.
Especially if to see it again.
You get to see it. Assuming it's a.
I moved that chair.
Yeah, no.
Subject.
I'm gonna pull you up. We can make a motion to not read it all. And then read it, and then read it from there. But we can really give it a read. I should read it, I do like to read. I think that, I think with the importance of what this is gonna do and what we're trying to achieve, that we should. Right, it should be read twice, it should be read through that's why it's time to the motion. We are back in session. So up next, we have number 4, we have CC, number 2025 041 Worthley. To amend the GCO, Chapter 5, Buildings and Building Regulations by adding new Article 6, Demolition Delay. Council Worthley, the floor is yours, and you can do introductions at the same time.
Thank you, Councilor Nolan. Thank you, Councilor Majota, Councilor Grace. I'm pleased to be here. It's been a long journey. What I'd like to do is spend a little bit of time talking about the history of this ordinance. And old history and recent history. I think there's some people who will be speaking tonight, who really championed this, and done a lot of work. This is well thought out, but that doesn't mean we're not open to questions and concerns, and I think we can cross any T and dot any I, either here or at a continued meeting or at the full council level. My hope is that tonight we can have a robust review of this ordinance, and if it feels like it's robust enough, a recommendation to the full city council. Not a continuation with maybe questions that need to come back to this committee to answer. About 20 years ago, there was a proposed demolition delay ordinance. And I was working with the Chamber of Commerce at the time, and the development community said, and they hadn't really read it, they said, well, this means if there's a broken screen door, you have to wait a year before you get your door fixed. And I read it, I said, that's not what this says. But the rhetoric starts real fast, and this means, oh, and they said, this is gonna make prices in Gloucester go through the roof 20 years ago. Because of the restrictions. And then when we dug into it, we said, no, this is for historic buildings, it's for ones that are very measured. But it got withdrawn because there was a lot of pressure. And then 15 years ago or so, there was a ordinance introduced, very similar. And they said, well, this applies to every property in Gloucester, even ones that were built just last year. I said, no, at the time, I think it was 1950. And then in March of this year, I submitted this, and mistakenly, it went to P&D, Plan and Development Committee, and the planning board as a zoning change. We learned real quickly that it's an ordinance from the code of ordinances, not this zoning code. But the planning board held a hearing, and there were a couple of members of the development committee saying, sort of, this is premature, why now? You know, the same kind of story, it's just gonna cost a lot more money for people. But instead, the planning board held the hearing. We heard the points that they made. And we factored a lot of that into this revised version of this, which to the point, I think that there will be very little, if any, opposition, knowing that we factored in all the considerations. At the time, the planning board was very favorable towards it, even though they weren't making a recommendation. But it was Beverly Bookins who said, but maybe we should wait to see if this comes out of the comprehensive planning initiative as a recommendation to see if there's support for that. And part of me thought, we can't just stop everything waiting for the next planning initiative, but we held off a little bit. And sure enough, if you've had a chance to read it yet, the comprehensive planning initiative has a very strong statement that the city should adopt a demolition delay ordinance. There are two members of the Historical Commission here who led this charge. Susan Moriel, the chairperson of the Historical Commission, Ralph Piscatora.
Vice Chair,
Vice Chair.
Yes.
and many of our members are here tonight and supporters.
Yes, lots of supports in the room here. And this has included a dialogue with the building commissioner's office, with the legal department. And I can assure you that the first go around wasn't as good as the final one. We feel really good about this.
We do have a seat here, if someone wants to come up and say, Jim, if you want it, or someone else.
So what I'd like to do before we do a presentation, is just do a couple of high level points. This is not something that affects every single property in Gloucester. This is not, I'm sorry, what it's not. This is not something that's going to drive the cost up for what might otherwise be an affordable house. This is not making it impossible for people to do anything. What this is identifying why my math is about 7% of the properties in Gloucester. I think that's the number we talked about. 7% of properties in Gloucester that were built before 1899.
I'm sorry, yeah, 7%, you said, right?
Seven.
Yeah,
Okay, 7% of the properties in Gloucester, which have historical value, or at least should be considered to see if they have historical value. My guess is that in many cases, the delay will be very short term. There'll be some consideration for preserving something on a property that's significant, and the historical commission might say, okay. In some cases, they'll be, hold on, let's really take a close look at this. And the person says, I don't want to wait. I'm going to back away from doing what I was going to do with that property, or I will make a significant change so that I can use a different part of my property. Or they might say, look, this is for someone else that wants to preserve this property. It's not for me, and they might sell. The goal of this is for it to be collaborative with the developers and with the development community and builders, with the building inspector's office, with the historical commission. And what this does is, if the council approves this, it gives a little bit of, I don't like the word teeth because it sounds dangerous, but it gives a little bit of teeth to the historical commission to say, not only do we feel strongly about this, but these are things you have to do. So what I'd like to do is, you know, if Ralph and Susan want to run with it, to do sort of a high level thing, and then we'll take any questions you have and go line by line through the ordinance.
The
Sure.
floor is yours, Suzanne.
Okay, so our goal is to simply pause after a demolition permit is pulled. Right now, we
Is that the
don't,
White House?
we don't even.
I should guess.
The easement.
Yeah,
right now, we don't even know when a permit is pulled. So we, number one, would like to be made aware, and number two, would like the opportunity to just review who is wanting to do what to what house. And it doesn't prevent a homeowner or a property owner from demolishing the house ever. It just pauses the process. And we fully recognize that there are old houses that should be torn down, and that's fine. We just want the chance to review it. So this new ordinance begins with the age, and the age is 1899 or earlier. And Gloucester has an astounding 7 houses built in the 1600s, 142 from the 1700s, almost 1,000 from the 1800s. That's over 1,100 houses that have absolutely no protection. Anybody can go in and do anything they want to these houses. So that's our focus of this ordinance. I did an analysis of the last 9 years. 131 houses were demolished. That's 15 houses a year. And of those, in the 9 years, 9 houses were in our focus area, 17 and 1800s. That only equates to 1 house a year that we would like the opportunity to review before it gets significantly modified or pulled down. In terms of Massachusetts, almost half the towns have a demolition delay. You see, they're mostly clustered on the East Coast. And of those, 50% have a delay of 12 months or greater. Most all of the surrounding communities on the North Shore have the demolition delay, and their average is 11 months. Now, Ralph is just going to review really quickly.
Yeah.
We tried to keep the procedure very simple. We reviewed it with Rob of the building committee. He seemed to have no issues with it. And it starts with us giving him a list.
Right. So we provide the building commissioner a list. As he gets in requests for a demolition permit, he'll check that list. And the list, as Susan said, contains any house in Gloucester that was built prior to 1900, so 1899 and earlier. So once the building commission does that, and those first two steps really is only a matter of couple of weeks at the most. Then it goes to the next Gloucester Historical Commission meeting, where we review the demolition permit, review the property that's the subject of the demolition permit, and we determine whether it's even worth saving or not. Is it historically significant or not? If it's not, so if it's an old beach house or something like that that's falling down, we just say, yeah, go ahead. We don't want any part of it. If it is significant, then at the next Gloucester Historical Commission meeting, we hold a public hearing where folks can come in and they can express their either concerns about it or their desire to preserve the history. If that takes place at that meeting, we will then make a decision at the end of that meeting whether it is preferably preserved or not preferably preserved. If it's not, then again, that's the end of the story. The permit can go forward and the house can be, or whatever the structure is, can be demolished. If it is, that's when the 12-month delay period starts. During that 12-month delay period, we'll explore alternative solutions, whether it's saving the facade of the house, moving the house, I don't know. Every situation is going to be different. We're going to have to work with the builder and the homeowner to see if we can come up with a way to preserve at least some of the history of the house. If not preserve the house, at least we can document that house has been torn down and we have a record of it for future historic purposes. That's the real quick view of the process. The next slide
And I just
Oh,
want to
sorry.
emphasize that right now, when a house is torn down, we have no record of what used to exist there. We have no photographs. We have no documentation. When you look on the city website on all the streets, that photograph of that old house and the, who owned it and everything, that all goes away. And the new house replacement photograph is there as though that old house never existed. We have no process in place in Gloucester to document what was there. So that's a really important part of this. And of course, we would need consent of the building owner to go in and photograph it if it were to be demolished. And that is built into the language.
Just a real high level view of the timing we're talking about here. So the first review is less than a month. So that's a review of, is it even something we want to consider as being historically significant? The next step is to determine whether it's preferably preserved or not. That's at the most 2 months. So the delay process to come up to the point whether we believe it's worth preserving or not is 2 months or less. After that point, the 12-month delay period begins. It doesn't have to be 12 months. It depends on what the outcome is of the discussion with the homeowner and the contractor or whoever is building the house. Like I said, it could be, we could come to an agreement fairly early and it'd be a lot less than the 12-month period delay. But in total, the maximum delay will be 14 months from the point that the demo permit was requested.
Excellent. Thank you very much.
And just one more point, as Councilor Wordley said, there is language in the comprehensive plan to have a demolition delay ordinance, and also there's a strong recommendation for adaptive reuse of historic buildings. And if we're tearing them down, then we can't do that.
Beautiful. I did read the entire ordinance. I understand it, and I think it's well written. And I think it holds a lot of merit to what we're trying to hold on to in our community. There are so many different buildings. We received an email today from Judy from the Magnolia Historical Committee about, I think she had 9 buildings in Magnolia that were ready to start thinking about applying or already have been in the process and more to come. I have a question for our building commissioner, Rob.
Yes.
So you've been a part of every point of this. I just want to make sure that you're all right with what's in front of you and what you think is reasonable for what they're asking, and that the building commission can accommodate those needs and support them.
Yeah, so the way it's written now versus how it was written when it was first presented to me back in March makes way more sense. With them giving me a list, it's no different than the historical district, which we're currently sitting in as we speak. What we'll end up doing with that list, I will have someone manually flag these property in our permitting process. So as soon as a permit is pulled for these properties, we'll know instantly because it's flagged. And that's when we'll send it right over to them instantly when they pull those type of permits. So,
Excellent. And I have talked to legal and they are on board with how it's written. And I think that it's important to know that most people are buying homes, if they know the historical value, they want to continue that. But there are a lot of people that just, they want to tear it down and build a house on a nice piece of property. I mean, in 1871, people built properties with views. You know what I mean? Whether they're watching to the ocean for their loved one coming in from fishing, or they, so on and so forth. There was so many things that were going on, but the houses, how can I say it? Let's go with Scotch. All right, I used to love Scotch. All right, but there's a taste in Scotch, and there's a price in Scotch. So if you really want to have a good Scotch, you're going to spend a lot of money, and there's a lot of people that'll spend a lot of money to keep the house and keep it historic. And they'll make sure that they have a modern feature to it for, effectiveness for energy, but keep the aesthetics of that same home. And that's like a beautiful dream be able to do that. And you can do that, working with the historic commission and making sure that you keep in the standards of how the house looks and so on and so forth. But there's a lot of people that are just looking to buy something that's run down and to just completely bulldoze it and start from scratch and build what they're looking for. And sometimes that's sad. At the corner of Western Avenue and Hesperus, there's a little white house that sits out back. And the Ellis family owns it, all right? And it's an old house. And they bought that because one of their daughters, when she was younger, said, I'd like to live there someday. And they bought it, and it's still sitting there doing nothing. I would love to see them restore that house and bring it back, because it's a perfect little example of a small home that was for a person that didn't have the money for a view, but was here. So there's so many things that can be saved. And if this can help save things or even educate a person, if there's a 12-month delay where you guys can work to a buyer and say, listen, you want to buy the house, we really don't want to see it demolished. There's a lot of historic value to this piece of property, and it grows in society of our town. And, but we are willing to let you do these type of modifications to it and keep it looking the same. And that's where I find the value of this ordinance. It's not just, we don't want you to buy something, tear it down and go away. It's, let's work with people and figure out what we can do to have a compromise. And that's how I read this ordinance. It's just, I think it's something that puts time into it and tries to figure out a good reason to make things happen. So at this point, I'm gonna open the floor to questions with Councilor Grace.
I just want to confirm that this delays potential destruction. It doesn't prevent it.
Exactly.
Correctly. And just more few commentaries, if I may.
You can ask whatever you want.
History is extraordinarily important to me, and everywhere you walk in this town, it hits you in the face. There's some story that a building or architecture tells, so I think it's very important. There was recently a house down the boulevard, maybe 5-6 years ago, that was slated to be torn down, and people were very, very upset about it. Thankfully, it did not get torn down. I think it's really important to note that there's two places in the comprehensive plan, page 52 and page 77, where they talk about the need for a delay in demolition. And one of the things that with the comprehensive plan, with going out into the community, was people saying, we do not want to see the landscape of Gloucester change to the point that we don't recognize it anymore. So I think it's really important in this case to listen to what the residents were saying. And the residents have said, we do not want everything to change. And I think that the 12-month delay is an opportunity to give people a moment to think, okay, yeah, maybe there is something here. And I am 100% for repurposing buildings and turning them into some other useful, rather than tearing something down or destroying more green space to build something. So I think it's a really good thing going forward. And again, the fact that it is twice mentioned in the comprehensive plan, which is something that for weeks and weeks or months at this point now has been, it's been brought up at every single forum and conversation and whatnot throughout the city to say this is what our plan is. And if the comprehensive plan has this in there twice, I think we need to listen to it. That's all.
Excellent. Councilor Majota.
So again, it doesn't prevent any repairs to a building that is old. If there's a leaky roof, all that stuff can be fixed. With the building inspector department, working with you and getting to where you are. I guess my only question is, when you had the list up for months, and you said the average was 11 months, I believe you said, for certain cities and towns for the demolition repair. Could they be more done or less done if there was 9 months compared to 12? What are those additional months? What are you getting out of those additional months rather than 9 or 12?
more
It-
time to educate.
More time.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a process. You're dealing with schedules, homeowners, their contractors. These people already own a house, so they then go to the building department because they have a plan. They want to modify it, or they want to tear down part of it or all of it. So that gives them and us a lot of opportunity to think about, maybe they go out and get other architectural plans to maybe take it down, but put it up again so that it looks the same. Or, it takes a long time. And I think if you have a shorter delay, like they did in Essex, that antique on Main Street, the Antiques Place, 44 Main Street, 4-month delay, they just waited it out and then they had permission to tear it down. So too short of a time really doesn't give us time to do our work, and is just a bump in the road for homeowners.
Yeah, it doesn't incentivize them enough to
Right,
really work with us.
right. In fact, Salem just increased theirs to 18 months. I think Hamilton has 18 months, depending on the year of the house. So the older the houses were, the more the delay. So it is an incentive for people to collaborate, leave their houses be, or give everybody time to pause and think it through.
Can I add one thing to your question? Sorry, answer to your question.
You can ask me if you can.
May I?
Yes.
The average of 11 months was not an indicator of how long each of the delays for each project
Right.
were.
No, I know, yes.
I just make sure it's clear though, the 12 months that we're proposing
It could
is
take
the
up to.
maximum. But it's very possible that after the third month, they say, what if we did this? And the historical commission says, way to go, love you, we're gonna have you get a preservation award this year. So it could be a very short time. There's no way of knowing what that average will end up being. Just want to.
Excellent. Counselor Grace.
And this is citywide, and whatever provisions are in place in the historic district will not change as a result of
Right.
this.
This
They're
is,
exempt.
Thank you.
this doesn't apply to the historic district at all.
In fact, that brings up a good point. The historic district has 84 structures, and there's another 10 preservation restrictions written through the Mass Historical Commission. There's a few other preservation restrictions not through. So 10 to 15 preservation restrictions, 84 in the district. Those are the only houses in Gloucester that have any sort of protection. So anybody can come in and do whatever they want to all of these historic houses, and they do. 131 houses a year are being torn down, and without thought to when they were built.
Thanks, Councilor Majota.
So-
To Jeff's question.
Well, yeah, it's more of a general comment, and the reason why I asked that question is, and we get questions why we pass certain things, or like, why did you guys do this or what that? And I think you explained perfectly why there is a 12-month, delay or negotiation, whatever you want to call it, in potentially tearing down, a historic building. It's not just, like you said, 4 months. It's a, bump in the road, whatever, I can wait that and then call it a day and do what I want. So I think that 12 months is a good time, like you said, to work it out. And that's why I asked the question. So when this does go to the full council, there's, backing to why we did 12 months and, because we get tons of emails about everything. So this is why I just asked that question. So thank you for answering it
Sure.
perfectly.
Is there anybody else in the room that want to talk? We're opening the floor up for speech, so if someone wants to add a comment or any type of information, we're here to listen.
No pressure.
I see some people I know that usually like to have a thing to say or two, but
We have
they're not
some
speaking, so.
preeminent historians in this room. Robert Booth and Wendy Frontiero, they've done an enormous amount of historical research. They probably know more about the history of this town, of the buildings, than anyone in the town. And I think they're in full support of this. That's why they're here.
Excellent.
Anything
Um,
to say or add?
2 points to make.
Okay. I know where you're all standing, and I've been following since the draft that came in the spring to what we've come to now. And I will say that you do owe, Jeff Worthley a round of applause. on that.
Absolutely, yeah. Yeah.
Thank you, but.
Believe me when I tell you that the council works very hard on a lot of things. And usually we just get a boot in the butt. But you're never gonna make everybody happy. It's rounding out what we feel is best for the city of Gloucester. Jeff stepped up on this and relentlessly was very adamant about trying to get this done and making sure it's on the schedule for this year. And I believe in this ordinance, so I'm happy to have it. Council Worthley.
Just 2 quick points I want to make. One is that nothing about this takes away the authority from the building commissioner to issue a demolition permit for an emergency.
Mhm.
Right, so if you have a historic building that caught on fire and it's gonna, fall down and destroy another house, and you'd rather have a controlled demolition, he has the authority to say, absolutely, sorry, historical commission, this is an emergency. He has that authority.
Yeah.
So
that's
that doesn't
important.
change if that circumstance happens. And the other thing is, and Sean, you alluded to some people, which want to make some few changes like for the energy systems like that. The historical commission would not have authority on whether they put a heat pump in or they do some internal changes. This is only on a demolition.
Mhm.
Right, so if someone wants to change the shingles, you may not like it, but that's not something that this ordinance gives the authority to have any delay on. So if we talk about someone maintaining their house or upgrading their home that doesn't involve a demolition, this doesn't touch that. There's still other provisions for them to go through, but this still allows people to maintain their home. So I just want to make sure as we go to the next step, if we get there, and you hear people say, well, what about this? I want you to be comfortable saying, no, we covered that, we covered that. So this is a pretty solid ordinance, and I'm proud, appreciate the round of applause, but really the historical commission, everyone, the historical community preservation committee has been pushing this for a long time. I'm glad to see it. Thank you.
Excellent. With that being said, Councilor Grace, we're gonna let you express your beautiful voice.
She doesn't sing it.
You can sing it too if you want.
Committee recommendation, move to recommend that the city council amend the Gloucester Code of Ordinances, chapter 5, buildings and building regulations by adding a new article 6, demolition delay. 6-1 title of ordinance, demolition of historically significant buildings. 6-2 intent and purpose. This ordinance is enacted for the purpose of preserving and protecting historically significant buildings within the city of Gloucester, which constitute or reflect distinctive features of the architectural, cultural, economic, political, or social history of the city, and to limit the detrimental effect of demolition on the character of the city. Through this ordinance, owners are preferably owners of preferably preserved historically significant buildings are encouraged to seek out alternative options. As outlined in section 6-5, this will preserve, rehabilitate, restore, or relocate such buildings. Additionally, through this ordinance, residents in the city are alerted to impending demolitions of historically significant buildings. By preserving and protecting historically significant buildings, this ordinance promotes the public welfare by making the city a more attractive and desirable place in which to live and work. To achieve these purposes, the Historical Commission is authorized to advise the building commissioner with respect to demolition permit applications. The issuance of demolition permits is regulated as provided for by this ordinance. 6-3 definitions. Applicant, any person or entity who files an application for a demolition permit. If the applicant is not the owner of the premises upon which the building is situated, the owner must indicate on or with the application his or her assent to the filing of the application. An application of the demolition of a building. Any combination of materials forming a shelter for persons, animals, or property. Building commissioner, the person occupying the office of the building commissioner or otherwise authorized to issue demolition permits. Commission, the Gloucester Historical Commission or its designee. Demolition, any act of pulling down, destroying, removing, dismantling, or raising a building or commencing the work of total or substantial destruction with the intent of completing the same. Substantial destruction is defined as destroying 25% or more of the square footage of a building or structure, which excludes garages and sheds. Demolition permit. The building permit issued by the building commissioner for a demolition of a building, excluding a building permit issued solely for the demolition of the interior of a building. Preferably preserved, any significant building which the commission determines following a public hearing that it is in the public interest to preserve rather than demolish. A preferably preserved building is subject to a 12-month demolition delay period of this bylaw. Historically significant building, any building within the city of Gloucester was in whole or in part built in 1899 or earlier, according to the Massachusetts Cultural Resource Information System. I don't know what that acronym is for, MACRIS database, 6-4 procedure. No demolition permit for a building which was built in 1899 or earlier, according to the MACRIS, as mentioned in 6-3, shall be issued without following the provisions of this ordinance. The commission will develop a list of buildings and structures subject to this ordinance and provide the building commissioner and the director of community development. When an application for demolition of a building or structure is filed with the building commissioner determines if the building or structure meets the build date criteria of 1899 or earlier, as indicated on the list provided by the commission. Within 5 business days of receiving an application for a demolition permit, the building commissioner informs the community development director, commission chair, and vice chair via email or US mail communication. This communication provides the applicant's name, address, contact information, and description of demolition and/or a copy of permit application. One sec.
Take your time.
Okay. At the commission's next scheduled meeting, an initial determination is required to be made by vote of a quorum of voting members regarding the historical significance of the building or structure based on one or more of the criteria outlined below. Historical significant criteria. 1, architectural importance in terms of period, style, method of construction, or association with a recognized architect or builder. 2, association with important persons, industries, or events in local history. 3, represents the architectural, cultural, economic, political, or social history of the city. 4, presence is in a designated cultural district such as Rocky Neck or Harbortown. 5, within 150 feet of a federal, state, or local historic boundary line. If the commission, in their initial determination, concludes that the building or structure is not historically significant, the commission notifies the community development director and building commissioner within 5 business days via email or US mail, and the demolition delay process ends, and a demolition permit can be issued by the building department. If in their initial determination, commission members determine the building or structure is historically significant, the commission shall inform the building commissioner and director of community development within 5 business days via email or US mail that the next commission meeting agenda will include a public hearing. The community development office will notify the applicant, abutting property owners, and the public, posting the date publicly at least 2 weeks before the public hearing to be held at the next commission meeting. Public hearing must be held within 30 days of said notification. After the close of the public hearing, the commission shall determine whether or not the building or structure is preferably preserved by a vote of a quorum of voting members of the commission. If the commission determines that a building or structure is not preferably preserved, then the commission shall notify the building commissioner and community development director in email or by US mail within 5 business days ending the demolition delay process. A demolition permit can then be issued by the building department. If the commission determines that a building or structure is preferably preserved, then a 12-month delay of demolition commences from the date of that vote, and the commission will communicate that within 5 business days via email or US mail to the building commissioner and the director of community development. The building department informs the applicant of the commencement of the 12-month demolition delay. 6-5. Alternate solutions. During the 12-month delay period, the commission will actively explore alternative solutions with the applicant, which may include any of the following examples. partial demolition that preserves the essential historical character of the building or structure or preserves the historic interest of a building or the streetscape it occupies. 2, modification of the building plan to mitigate the negative effects of demolition. 3, preservation, rehabilitation, or restoration of the building or structure in lieu of demolition. 4, relocation of the building or structure to another site on the lot or to another location. During the delay period, the owner would be responsible for securing the property and taking measures to prevent damage, as in restricting access, protecting windows, turning water off if the structure will remain unheated. If no feasible solution can be found before the delay period ends, the commission, with the consent of the building owner, can photograph the interior and exterior of the building or structure as documentation for Gloucester's historical records. 6-6, administration. The commission may adopt such rules and regulations as are necessary to administer the terms of this ordinance. The Community Development Director is authorized on behalf of the commission to adopt a schedule of reasonable fees to cover the costs associated with the administration of this ordinance. 6.7. Emergency demolition. If after an inspection, the building commissioner finds that a building subject to this ordinance is found to pose an immediate threat to public health or safety due to its deteriorated condition and that there is no reasonable alternative to the immediate demolition of the building, then the building commissioner may issue an emergency demolition permit to the owner of the building. The building commissioner shall then prepare a report explaining the condition of the building and the basis for his decision, which shall be forwarded to the commission and the community development director. 6.8, enforcements and remedies. If an applicant fails to comply with the demolition delay order, the applicant will incur a fine of $300 per day for the remainder of the delay period per Mass General Law, Chapter 40, Section 21. If the building subject to this ordinance is demolished without first obtaining a demolition permit, no building permit shall be issued for a period of 2 years from the date of the demolition on the subject parcel of land or any adjoining parcels of land under common ownership and control, unless the building permit is for the faithful recreation referred to above or unless otherwise agreed to by the commission. 6.9, Historic District Act. Following a determination that the building is significant and preferably preserved, the commission may recommend to the city council that the building be protected through the provisions of the Mass General Law, Chapter 40C, the Historic Districts Act. The steps required under MGL Chapter 40C shall be followed prior to the establishment of a local historic district. Nothing in this ordinance shall be deemed to conflict with the provisions of the Historic District Act, Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 40C. If any of the provisions of this ordinance do so conflict, that act shall prevail. Buildings included within the boundaries of the local historic district established under Mass General Law, Chapter 40C shall not be subject to this ordinance so long as the proposed demolition is regulated by the local historic district ordinance. 6-10, severability. In case any section, paragraph, or part of this ordinance be for any reason declared invalid or unconstitutional by any court, every other section, paragraph, and part shall continue in full force and effect in isolation.
Second.
Great job. Nice job. Nice job. Now, I gotta read it next time.
Sean, a quick comment.
Yeah.
Quick comments.
Today.
Sorry, for the recording, there was one word, the whole, you did such a fantastic job, we did miss one word.
Okay.
And it was on the 150, yeah, it's on section 6-4 procedure, historical significance criteria, number 5, within 150 feet of a federal, state, or local historic district boundary line. You said historic boundary line,
Okay.
which it's
I shall
inconsequential.
fix it. 5, within 150 feet of a federal, state, or local historic district
Right, just want to make sure we
boundary
got it
line.
right for the record.
All right.
And then the other thing is, I just want to ask one quick question, if I may. We're asking the building commissioner to provide the address of the applicant and the name and address of the applicant, which may not be the same address as the property they're proposing for demolition. Could we add in friendly amendment that say, including the property proposed for demolition? Because if I were to apply and give you my address, it's gonna be a mailing that's gonna go to my company address or my,
Okay,
right? It wouldn't necessarily give the public notification of what property.
so we're gonna add that in at the end. If you wanna just read that,
Okay.
that the address given will be for the property that is affected by the.
Okay, so a friendly amendment that the,
Well, excuse me.
So you should, if you're gonna make an amendment, we should do it properly, so that means,
This needs to be seconded and then it needs to be.
Yeah.
Make a motion.
So,
you're changing
so
the-
I recommend to.
because it has been voted and seconded.
It hasn't been seconded.
Yes,
Yeah.
I seconded the entire thing.
Yeah.
not the
Okay.
So
amendment.
would it be
Yeah.
better to wait till the whole?
no, we can do it now,
Process, okay.
just let me take down what you wanna say, that's all.
So motion to amend that we add that the address would be the property that is to be
Opposed.
proposed property for demolition.
Yes,
And I so move.
I'll second that.
okay. So now we can vote on the amendment as a whole. All in favor? Aye. All right, now we can vote on the entire. All in favor? Aye. Excellent. And this is gonna be for,
So we'll be going to council.
so this would be the 25th of November. All right, and I want to thank you all for your work. Yeah. You want to,
Be here.
So the next,
Why don't we plan for the 25th and we'll talk to Tony about if he wants to put it.
Okay.
Because it might be, if you could zoom wherever you're gonna be.
What is the next date?
it can, so the following date will be the, December 9th. And this will be going to a public hearing, and a public hearing can always be opened and continued to a following date.
so we would probably put it, let's keep it on the 25th because we can advertise it. And then we can always open and continue, and it doesn't confuse things. My thought is that you have no idea what may happen between now and the 25th. There could be emergencies that show up that were taken up, and then when Tony's going through the agenda, this could be pushed into January.
You know best.
Yes.
Okay.
So. Okay, excellent. I'd like to make a,
Quick question.
Wait a moment.
Thank you.
We have somebody with a hand raised. I don't know if you wanna see what that's about.
everything's closed.
Okay, sorry, Ann.
Oh, she was very much, she sent an email very much in favor of this and sorry to. And I know she couldn't get here on time, but she could speak at the full council.
Yeah.
And it seems like we all supported this.
Yeah.
I think that, with, and did the friendly amendment, I think that we could, and we already voted on it.
Yeah.
So at the end of the day, then we vote on it. So
All right, so that being said, I'd like to have a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you all for